This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
All right, welcome back to the Goals.com podcast, the show where we break down what it really takes to sell smarter, lead stronger, and perform at the highest level. Today, we're joined by someone who knows sales from every angle, Tyler Wruck, Director of Sales at Sandler, one of the leading sales training companies in the world. Tyler's been transforming sales teams in the Twin Cities for years, helping them ditch the old tricks, adopt winning mindsets, and master the art of closing deals the Sandler way. We're talking leadership, mindset, and what separates the good from the great. So buckle up, because this one's packed with real-world gold. Tyler, thanks for joining today.
Andrew, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
You've been with Sandler now for over 5 years. What first drew you to their sales methodology, and why has it resonated with you so strongly?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Andrew. You know, when I think about Sandler and my experience and kind of what drew me into it, there's really several different things. One of the main things would be understanding that the sales profession, the sales role that a lot of us have, or even the sales leadership role that a lot of us have, it's really one role that we play in life. And that's all it is a role. And, you know, it shouldn't have any dictation or impact on like how we view ourselves conceptually as people. And kind of being able to separate those two things is definitely something that resonated with me. You know, in addition to that, the fact that we're rooted and kind of backed in psychology and behavioral science is another thing that really drew me in. Those are some of the main things that kind of initially right out of the gate had me grabbing onto it.
For those who may not be familiar, how would you describe the Sandler selling system in a way that resonates with modern salespeople?
Yeah, so just to kind of define two different areas, I think of the Sandler selling methodology and then also the Sandler selling system. And as far as the methodology goes, we really believe in controlling what you can control. And, you know, there's a lot of outside noise. There's a lot of stuff that we have zero control over that really tries to kind of get into our heads and gum up the works and prevent us from controlling what we can control. And so I think the visual and understanding of that is extremely impactful for efficiency and effectiveness. And we can control the things that we choose to do day in and day out. We can control our attitude, right? We can control our mindset. We can manage our beliefs and, you know, our attitude towards a lot of different things. And I think that that's important in ensuring that you can control those areas. And then obviously we can control our technique, right? Which is, I think, where we start to get into the actual Sandler selling system. So the profession at large is something that's, I think, more important to view and understand than just the actual system or process itself. You know, if we're talking about the Sandler selling system, honestly, when we're talking about modern salespeople, I like to kind of view it in the lens of nothing more than a communication enhancement model. A communication enhancement model that really lends itself towards open, honest, adult to adult conversations. As far as results of the system, you know, there's four positive results of any system, but one positive result obviously is you get a yes, right? We want to work together. But another positive result is to get a no, really for two main reasons. Through getting a no, we can learn a lesson, right? We can take a little bit of ownership and ask ourselves and understand, well, why did we get that no? And then we can save ourselves some time and mental anguish, I guess, from wondering exactly what's happening and what's going on there. Certainly, it may not always be a good fit with the person we're talking to, but we could get a referral or an introduction as another positive result. But my personal favorite is gaining and establishing a clear, well understood, mutually agreed upon future or next step, right? So it's all about understanding the buyer, making the conversation focused on them, and really truly trying to pull out and uncover, well, what are their motivating factors here, right? Like, what are their reasons for buying? And sometimes they know what those are, and we just need to, uncover and discover what those are. But sometimes they might not be fully aware of what their motivating factors are. And so helping them discover what those are, I think, is a way that I would describe the system itself. It's meant and designed for the salesperson to lead the process, but in a nurturing fashion that kind of has the buyer feeling like, hey, I'm still in control here, but the salesperson is still navigating and kind of controlling the system as they go through it.
Sure. Sandler focuses on attitude over technique. Why do you believe mindset is often more important than tactics in sales?
Yeah, talking about the controllables, behavior, attitude, and technique. It's an equilateral triangle when we talk about the Sandler success triangles. But from an attitude standpoint, I mean, there's so many things that are impacted by attitude. And if we're relating it to tactics or techniques, if our attitude isn't of the sense that I believe in the technique, or I believe in myself, or I believe in what my company is setting out to do, well, that's going to come through in our communication, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. And I think it's about just understanding our belief system and what beliefs we have. What beliefs are either self limiting or empowering beliefs that are kind of helping shape the way that we communicate and kind of go down sales processes and really conversations in general.
Okay. How do you help sales reps unlearn bad habits or ingrained behaviors that may be holding them back?
So we like to talk about like the adult learning model. We have a lot of beliefs within Sandler, one of which is behavioral change takes time. And I think starting with some general awareness and exposing maybe what some of those bad habits might be negatively impacting them, how some of those bad habits might be negatively impacting them, right? So, like, starting with just some general awareness as to what the habits are and what type of an impact those habits are having. And then from there, okay, what's some knowledge and information that maybe is new and different than what they've been doing from a habit standpoint? And then it's all about application, right? We've got this awareness, we've got this newfound knowledge. Now let's start applying it. And we can work together, in a safe environment, practicing and role playing, like application of this awareness and knowledge. And then through consistent application of that, there's skill that develops and there's new skill that's created. And then as we start to get more newfound skill, then we can apply the new skill and eventually it becomes habit. But I think it's not trying to do too much at once, and it's focusing on small things that can be implemented, right? And consistently applying small things and then just building upon it and naturally progressing from.
Got it. As a director of sales, what's your approach to leading teams, especially in high performance, high pressure environment?
Well, I think a big concept is never really manage your numbers, focus on managing your behaviors. High pressure environment, high performing team, right? A lot of it is focused on results. And hey, this is the goal. We have to hit this goal come hell or high water, oftentimes, right? And it's like chunking it down further and focusing on, okay, well, what controllable behaviors, what things do we have complete control over from a behavior standpoint that's going to put us in a position to have a selling conversation, that's going to put us in a position to get some of that revenue from a goals standpoint. never manage anything you can't control. You really can't control the results numbers, but you can manage the behaviors and inputs on the front end. And so I just want to go back to, if we truly focus on controlling what we can control, I think that's a big part of it. I also think that celebrating success in those environments matters a lot, because if we knock one down and we have a nice win, and then it's like, okay, well, what's next immediately? That can be a little bit exhausting. And so I think a little bit of celebrating the success kind of goes a long ways for environments like that.
For sure. In your coaching, what's the most common obstacle you see salespeople struggle with, and how do you help them overcome it?
There's a lot of different ones to choose from here, but I would say most commonly it's really understanding that salespeople have rights, sales professionals have rights, and a concept that I think is an obstacle for people to overcome is truly embracing equal business stature. And from our perspective, equal business stature really means like professionally asserting our rights as sales professionals to have open, honest conversations. Because all too often, salespeople maybe view themselves as a notch below the buyer. Maybe the salesperson feels extremely gracious to have gotten 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever it is with the buyer. And they kind of put the buyer on a pedestal, and they don't view their time as equally important as the buyer's time. And they're just happy to be there. And so I think really making sure, one, that they understand the concept of equal business stature and buy in to that concept is huge. And then helping them with maybe some of the actual techniques and things that we can communicate to establish and then maintain that equal business stature. Without that equal business stature, buyers are going to completely control the process. There's not going to be a healthy exchange of information. And unfortunately, we can get used and abused as salespeople from time to time.
That's an interesting concept. How do you balance holding salespeople accountable with keeping them motivated and engaged?
It's kind of a tricky one. I think it's really twofold from my perspective. One of which is not all salespeople are the same. A lot of people are different. And as leaders and holding people accountable, we have to understand what motivates this person in particular. Some people are motivated by money, and that's a good thing to be motivated by in the sales profession, but not everybody is motivated by that. Some people might be motivated by achievement. They could be motivated by purpose, right? And I think if we can understand what motivates our people, then we can kind of gear our coaching and one-on-one conversations around that. The other piece, I think, when it comes to goals and establishing goals in general, I think allowing that salesperson or sales professionals to have some say and some involvement within what those goals are. And it's not just the professional goals. I think if we're really going to understand our people and what motivates our people, I think that having an understanding of what their personal goals are and why those are their personal goals can really help take that connection to the next level. So then if we're having conversations and holding people accountable, it's about them, and we can refer back to what they're seeking to accomplish and why that's important to them. And, it eventually, the idea is that it turns into kind of some self accountability that takes place within all of that.
What's one piece of advice you find yourself giving to sales leaders like over and over again?
Coaching and leading, especially from a one-on-one standpoint, even from a team standpoint, really could be viewed a lot like a sales call. And I would say the piece of advice is to make sure that you're fully prepared for these conversations and not just winging it and jumping in without a plan, jumping in without an agenda, jumping in without truly understanding what exactly it is I'm seeking to accomplish in this particular conversation, and understanding, okay, leaving this meeting or this coaching conversation, what does success look like, right? Like what's success, and what are we going to build upon, and kind of how are we going to progress this thing? So I guess overall it's just making sure that we're prepared and having a plan, when we're doing our coaching and leading conversations.
So, in your view, what separates the 1%, the top 1% of salespeople from the rest of the pack?
I really think, Andrew, that it boils down to behavior and consistency with behavior. And when I say behavior, I mean like the actual inputs that are going to put us in a situation to have enough sales conversations, to put us in enough situations to deliver enough proposals and, get business across the finish line. The consistency with behavior and almost finding joy in the behavior front end, top of the pipeline activities, I think really is a very key factor for that 1% of sales professionals.
How do you measure success beyond just hitting quota?
I think this is a very opinionated question. I have my opinion, but this is one, Andrew, I wanted to ask you. How do you measure success behind quota?
Well, in our company, I measure success beyond quota just in the people that show up day in and day out with that attitude and that, self drive to just want to come in and win day in and day out. Those consistent people that, I don't necessarily need to wonder how hard they're working today or, did they show up with their A game today? The culture here at Goals.com is, filled with, fortunately, a team that shows up day in and day out, ready to do what they need to do to move the needle forward, make sure we're all rowing in the same direction and going above and beyond what their quote unquote role is supposed to be. So yeah, I mean, it's not just about the numbers. It's far more than that. It's working together, working hard toward a common goal and leaving at the end of the day a little bit further down the trail than we were when we started the day.
I couldn't agree more. I really appreciate kind of your perspective on success. I think a big part of how I view success is balance, right? Like, I think that hitting quota, exceeding quota, and achieving numbers is great, right? But I also think that there should be balance with, okay, I've worked hard, I've had success in the efforts that I put into work, but now can I enjoy other things, right? And I think with balance and being able to enjoy other things outside of work, I think it kind of refuels the fire and remotivates us to then go back in and hit numbers again and be, you know, successful in the work area so that we can enjoy our free time and enjoy all the time outside of work. So I think success is really balance and being able to enjoy both of those things.
Certainly. What role do you see continuous learning and reinforcement training playing in long-term sales success?
I love this question. I want to go back to how we view sales as a true profession, a noble profession at that, right? Not a lot of people were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And when they were asked, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not a lot of people say, hey, I want to be a salesperson, right? But a lot of us have found ourselves in that role. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that maybe don't view it or treat it as a profession, but it is a true profession. And when I think about other true professions like professional athletes, and I think about the journey and kind of the ongoing practice and skill development, it's like, okay, when we get to the highest level, when athletes get to the highest level and they're outside of their actual games, are they practicing more or less than they did when they were in college? When you're in college, are you practicing more or less than you did when you were in high school? And so on and so forth. And like any real profession, you can always be continually improving and honing your craft. And so I think it's vitally important, as someone that's in the sales profession, in the sales coaching, sales training profession, part of the reason why I fell in love with it is because I can continually be getting better at myself. And there's like no end to the knowledge that we can consume. And then the knowledge that we can then apply. It's just ongoing. And I really think that if the day that we stop learning is not a good day at all. I think we can always be consuming information and learning and then applying where we get from there. So I think it's vitally important.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Can you share a time when a small change in mindset or change in process led to a huge performance breakthrough for a client?
Yeah, I got one client in particular that kind of jumps out at me, and it's actually back to the question of what's one of the most common struggles that salespeople have, and again, it's the concept of equal business stature, and that mindset shift opened up a whole nother world of communication, a whole nother world of confidence, a whole nother world of conviction, and it was almost like, okay, the shackles are off. I'm detached from the outcome of this meeting, right? A no is equally as good as a yes. Encouraging the assertiveness to ask the questions that need to be asked and really consistently implement equal business stature and exuding our rights as sales professionals. And I think that there was just like a cultural shift amongst the organization. And it's almost like they fed off of one another with examples that were shared, specific situations of how it was established, and then how that helped everything kind of fall into place from there.
I love it. What's the most surprising or unconventional piece of sales advice you've ever given that actually worked?
Certainly it's situational, but sometimes suggesting to a prospect, especially early on in the process, that maybe it doesn't make sense for us to do business together. Like if you think about an example and some of the types of buyers that we come across and interact with, I think most people in the sales profession understand the value of asking questions and gathering information, but oftentimes buyers try and puff their chest out and minimize us as salespeople, and they might say something like, well, Tyler, I want you to explain with me why we should work with you, why we should work with your organization. And it's just putting us in a situation where, okay, now we're going to dump feature benefit this, feature benefit that, and just kind of talk, 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 talk. But if we could say, you know what, Andrew, I'm glad you asked that question, but quite frankly, I'm not sure it does make sense for us to work together. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, take this next 60 minutes, ask each other some questions, and then we can collectively determine at the end of this conversation if it makes sense to keep talking or not. So
That's
yeah, I would
interesting.
say most unconventional that has worked for clients, has worked for myself is, maybe just suggesting that, hey, it's quite possible it doesn't make sense for us to work together. I'm not sure that you should do business with us.
You would definitely get their attention.
Yeah, exactly. You stiffen up their backbone a little bit, right? Like
You
it's
put
like,
you
okay,
put them in
this
the
is
hot seat.
unusual. What's that?
You put them in the hot seat.
Yeah, almost.
I like it. So looking ahead, what trends or changes do you think will most impact how we sell and lead in the next 5 years?
It's tough to predict the future. Obviously, AI is having more and more of an impact on everybody's lives, and certainly, I think within the sales profession. Buyers and the journeys that buyers go on in today's day and age has changed a lot, especially as the Gen Z and millennial workforce gets into higher level positions where they're the ones that are maybe responsible for making purchasing decisions at organizations. They, on their journey, have 70 to 80% of their journey complete by the time that they even engage with the salesperson. We're in the world of information, and there's so much information at their disposal, at their fingertips, where, you know, we only have 20% involvement in the overall buying journey. So I think understanding that and ensuring that we are mentally prepared with a plan that runs in conjunction with the fact that they've gathered all their information, or a huge chunk of it, before getting to us, I think is a little bit of a shift in the future. I also think too, from a salesperson standpoint, right? AI allows us to be much more efficient, much more effective with taking notes, right? Like having follow up conciseness kind of right in front of us, where we don't need to spend, 5 hours a week inputting information into a CRM, or we don't need to spend a lot of time in other areas that we didn't or that we used to. And so, okay, we have potentially more time, spending that appropriately for preparing and making sure that we fully maximize the human to human interaction that takes place. Machine learning is one thing, and I think it's here and it's not going away. But that human to human element is not going to change. So I think really ensuring that we maximize those opportunities is kind of a direction that things are headed.
I agree with that. I think, too many people are fearing AI as opposed to just simply embracing it and taking advantage of it. And that's what I think there's a lot of tools out there, especially for sales professionals, to take advantage of today.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Goals.com podcast. Huge thanks to Tyler Wruck for sharing not just the tactics, but the mindset shifts that create lasting sales success. If you took away even one strategy you can put into play today, make sure you subscribe, share this with your sales team, and keep pushing to the next level. Until next time, stay focused, stay hungry, and keep hitting those targets.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.